So the concept of raising banana is not very accurate, in my opinion. Is based on the host that's the races or the certain strains or isolates can or not produce disease in some specific cultivars. So, but anyway, people still use it. But we try to change this, but it's very difficult. So there are four races essentially: race 1, 2, 3, and 4. Race 1 is the one that caused the epidemic in Gros Michel, but also can cause disease in other groups. Like Gros Michel is A, triple A genome, but in some cases can also cause disease in AAB, in apple banana, for example. Race 2 is recognized by causing disease on blue goo, cooking bananas. Race 3 is not anymore in the literature because it's known to be pathogenic to Heliconia, which is a relative of banana, are ornamental bananas, but is not considered anymore in this scheme of resistance. And, and tropical race 4 divides in sub and tropical race 4. Subtropical race 4 can cause disease on Cavendish, but when the Cavendish bananas are predisposed by abiotic stress like winter inundations, these kind of situations, abiotic conditions. While the tropical race 4 is able to infect banana, doesn't matter where. So it just make it sick. Another way to classify the Fusarium from banana is the compatibility, the vegetative compatibility groups, BCGs. Sorry for this slide in Spanish. Um, I haven't done it in a long time, so to be honest, I forgot how to do it. But it's still used in many countries to determine um, specific strains of Fusarium. Like for example, here we have this tester with the VCG 1213, which is the one that is the tropical race 4. And let's say that we have some unknown or isolated Fusarium from a specific place in the world. And if we put them here after, of course, a lot of processes, if they produce this heterokaryon, they are complementary. And then you can say that this one is a tropical race 4. Just as a way to summarize what I'm just told, here we have the races, we have the vegetative compatibility groups, and of course, diversity based on DNA. The most important here is that you should know that the tropical race 4 is a clonal lineage that belongs only to this VCG, 1316. This is another story why 1316 is just two different groups identified simultaneously, but it's the same. So they just combine it and now it's 1316. While, for example, the subtropical, the race 1, the race 2, there are many genetically different isolates that are associated with that. And they are, for example, this one, the VCG 012 is in some cases, for example, in Australia, considered subtropical race 4 because they re-isolate the fungus from a Cavendish. But if we go to Brazil, to India, they isolate it from a Gros Michel, but it's the same VCG, the 012 So you see, this concept of race and VCG is very ambiguous, it's difficult. And there is another example. This one, the 0124, is considered in some countries subtropical because it was recovered from the subtropical areas from a Cavendish. But this one, for example, comes from a plantain, from a cooking banana. So they call it race 2. So it's still very complex for this group, but it's very easy for the tropical race 4 because it's just one. That's why we don't have diagnostics for each of these, but we have a good diagnostics for this one, which is essentially the most important at the moment. Here it's only for you to see there are two clades usually in the Fusarium. In many studies, these two clades are conserved. But as you can see here, again, the race 1 is distributed in both clades. They are not really related, but the tier 4 is always just one. And it's one, and it was proved by my colleague Ordóñez, who collected the tier 4 that existed until 2015, and we sequenced them, and she proved that indeed is a clonal lineage with some small differences at the level of SNPs, but essentially the tier 4 that is present in Indonesia is the same that's being located or found in different locations, which means that humans are moving this pathogen from one place to another. My other colleague, Nani Mariani, went further and she went to Indonesia, the center of origin of the banana and also the pathogen, to collect Fusarium and from diseased plants. And she made a bigger analysis in which she could identify, or they conclude based on the concept with, yeah. So they determined that actually the race one is not just one, but actually are different species. And they decided to make a new nomenclature for this, which is still for consideration, but the most important of this slide is that you know that if you hear Fusarium odoratissimum, we are making reference to the tropical race 4. That's the new name that they provide to that specific strain known as Fusarium tropical race 4. So from this analysis, she collected 200 isolates, and half of them were TR4, as you can see here. But then these ones, she decided, together with the other authors, that they are indeed different species. So they provide new names, which, let's say, will make easier later to classify and to probably develop as diagnostics. But of course, make it more complex, because for now, everything that is Fusarium that cause disease in banana has been Fusarium oxysporum forma special cubensis, but that will disappear.